You're not a stranger to the MCU, having composed the music for What If and Miss Marvel.
Hmm.
Did those experiences help prepare you for the Marvels? If so, in what ways?
Well, I often talk about working on What If as a way to going to Marvel University. So basically, for those of you who know the show What If, it's an anthology series, and many, if not most, of the episodes look at a film in the MCU. So you've got to know what the film does, you've got to know what the music does, and then you've got to be able to turn it upside down to create the sound for What If, which is the multiverse of, I don't know, of people's craziest imaginations of what the MCU could be. So I absolutely think that working on What If very much prepared me for working in the MCU. I got to know people. I got to know Kevin and Brad Winterbaum and Brian Andrews, who's the director. And I really learned kind of the Marvel way through working on What If, which I think was extremely helpful. When I came on to Ms. Marvel, it was, Kamala Khan is a new character in the MCU. So we wanted to do two things. We basically wanted to acknowledge that she is a new and different kind of character, but we also wanted to give her the dignity of being a superhero and welcome her into the MCU that she admired so much. So I think having done What If and knowing what the MCU music is absolutely helped prepare me to do Ms. Marvel. And then, of course, Ms. Marvel was in many ways, relates right to this project because we have Kamala now growing up and joining Monica and Carol to form the Marvels, and a new fantastic team of superheroes.
How did you approach the themes for the three superheroes in this film? Does each superhero have her own theme, or is there one for the trio?
The idea was to create a brand new theme for the Marvels. And think about Captain America and the Avengers. Two related properties, right? But two properties that have distinct musical languages, even though they're written by the same composer. So here, the idea was the Marvels is not a sequel. It's its own thing. It's a new teaming up of these three characters. So we definitely wanted to create something new for them and start in this environment they find themselves in with a fresh musical sound.
There's a theme of family running through the film. Did you find that to be an interesting theme to work with? And how does the music explore that theme?
There is a major family theme running through the show, and I think that there are kind of two ways that I approached it musically specifically, with the main theme for the Marvels that has the ability to become very emotional and very meaningful, as well as be, badass and work with action. But I also wrote a chosen family theme, and the chosen family theme was more directed to Monica and Carol and Maria. So, and of course, then Kamala joining that family too. I think that the cast and crew of the Marvels has become a kind of a family. We're a chosen family, and we loved working together and creating these synergies and creating the emotional life, behind these incredible characters.
What did you lean into when composing the theme for the villain Darben?
Darben is one of my favorite characters in the film, and I think she also has an emotional journey that's really important to understand. I think when you think about villains, it's easy to see them all is evil, but they're not. And Darben has some motivations for doing what she does that come from trying to do good. But there is something about her. The words that I've been using are slithery, and I think there's something almost jazzy about her. So believe it or not, I leaned into jazz. And I also chose the flute and multiple flutes as her main instrument because the idea of breath and breathing for Darben in particular is really important. And when you play the flute, literally you have to take in air in order to push it out. So there's all kinds of breathing sounds that are incorporated into her sound. But I have to say that there is jazz in her music. I'm sorry I've introduced jazz to the MCU. I'm not the first to do it. I guess we had some in Captain America now, didn't we? Yeah.
How did you go about creating the epic sound that features in these Marvel Studios films?
Well, I think the epic sound starts actually strangely small in a Marvel film, in a Marvel theme in particular. You have to start out with a kernel almost, like a 2 bar or 4 bar, a short musical phrase that can be immediately remembered and sung. I mean, I want people to leave the theater knowing what the theme for the Marvels sounds like, just like they do other iconic MCU films. So you almost start small. You start with a singable theme, and then you build it out using all the tools in your arsenal as a composer to build that up, to let it be able to really go a lot of ways, emotionally, a lot of musical richness. And music, we talk about harmony, which is basically chords and the way they stack and the way they work together. So you have to have a theme that you can sing melodically, but also has a lot of richness harmonically. And that is something that's really important to support the drama of a massive film like this.
Tell us about working with Evelyn Glennie and sonifications to create the sound, so to speak, of space and the other planets.
So really, the question is posed, what does space sound like? And it's so hard to figure out. I mean, if you think about 2001: A Space Odyssey, they used a piece by Richard Wagner, right? It's French horn and this idea of what that sounds like floating in space. And I think that's a sound that we've seen in cinema. But I really wanted to figure out, in a way, what space could sound like and how I could transform that into being music in the score. So I first found out that there is no sound in space, that you can only feel sound, you can't hear it. So I wanted to work with this incredible percussionist named Evelyn Glennie. Evelyn is one of the greatest musicians in the world, but one of the really unique things about her is that she does not hear well. She's profoundly deaf. So she literally feels sound in her body. She often will play barefoot so that the sounds vibrate through her feet. So that to me seemed very akin, very close to this what feeling sound might be in space. So I went to her studio in England, and we spent 2 days working, banging on a variety of instruments, everything you can possibly imagine, and making sounds in the weirdest of ways. So that was Space Part 1. Space Part 2 was I commissioned this incredible composer and computer scientist, Tina Talon, and she would take data from space, from things that were relevant to plot points in the film, and then change that data into musical notes. And then I would take those notes and then redo them again and use them in the score. And then finally, the last little bit that I did was I went to a prop house in Burbank, and I rented actual space junk that had fallen out of the sky. Anything that could make a cool sound, we picked up and we took it home and we played it on the score.
What was your experience like working with director Nia DaCosta?
I loved working with Nia DaCosta. I mean, Nia is very clear about what she wants musically and otherwise. She's clear about story. She understands her characters. She knows how to talk to a composer, to creators, and she was incredibly inspiring to work with. I think she loves this material and she knew it well, and she was able to communicate that very effectively to me.
What do you hope the music in the Marvels conveys to the audience?
I hope this music conveys everything about the majesty of this movie, the epic scale of this movie, the humor of this movie, the interpersonal connections of this movie, massive things at stake in this movie. There's a lot at stake. And I think it kind of encompasses a lot of the emotions that are most important to humanity and others, I suppose. So I hope that it becomes an emotional tool for viewers and for listeners to hang on to connect to these places in an even deeper way.